Well, I think what I learned is that I like when we're translating our sentences and stuff and we're doing the exercises, I'm relying too heavily on the book to help me get through it.
Oh, okay.
And so I'm not forcing myself to really know the information.
Get my pen here.
And so with that, let me pull up. I'm going to share answers. Don't you like my title to the test? Anybody look at the title of the test? Still having fun.
I'm still having
Good.
no anything.
Let's let me just, I think both of you know this by now. If you were taking this as a college course or seminary course or even a typical online course, we'd be moving faster and you would be responsible for a lot more. Because I'm thinking, like, when I went to seminary, I think we had to add 20 vocabulary. I think we added 20 vocabulary words a week. That's Greek. We're also probably learning 20 to 30 vocabulary words a week in Hebrew too, at the same time. So yeah, you have more, but I was kind of hoping we could do a class where we can kind of work our way through these things and we don't feel like we have to, you know, you guys aren't getting college credit for this. The purpose of this is to help you learn Greek.
Yes.
And to kind of figure out how the language works so that eventually, my goal, and this is actually something I would encourage you to try to do, is to take, if you have a iPad, a phone, something like that, that you have the Greek text on, that gives you access to where you can tap on things and it'll tell you what the Greek words are if you don't know them. Because I can do that. I've got this Greek text and it has translation and parsing down below on words that a first year student might not know. And this is my reading Bible. I have one like this at home when I'm at home for reading. And then this one, I look at that stuff down there occasionally. I don't use it very much.
What's the name of that book?
This one is just called The Greek New Testament, the Reader's Edition, and it's published by Crossway. And there's another one published, the one I have at home is published by, it's also a Reader's Edition, Greek New Testament, and it's published, I think, by the German Bible Society, I think, or the United Bible Society, one of those two. Anyway, but this is the goal. And this is maybe a little bit early, but I think one of the things that I would challenge you to do is that when you're following along in a Bible study, when you go to church, you know, and whoever's teaching, to try to follow along. I don't want you to lose it, but I think if you listen and you're following along in the Greek text, you're going to be able to pick out words. It's going to force you to pick out words. At the very least, put it in an interlinear mode and follow that way. So you can look down at the Greek words and go, oh, they're talking about that word right now, or that's where they're reading, and start forcing yourself to be more involved. And I think I told you this, when I went to seminary, I had finished I was about halfway through my first quarter in Greek. And I was like, man, I just felt like I was drowning. And I had taken Greek in college, but we're moving at a different pace at seminary. And I just felt like, man, I am just barely keeping my head above water. And I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put my interlinear away in Bible classes. Now in theology, I stayed with my interlinear just because theology, we're covering stuff I really wanted to get. And when we're going through New Testament Bible, we're taking Ephesians and Colossians and those, you're reading through those books and studying them. I started following along. I should bring it down and show it to you, but when Peg and I on our honeymoon went to a used bookstore and I bought a 15th edition Nestle's Allen text. It was an old Greek text, but it's got a wide margin and it's on really nice paper. And I had a technical pen and I came up with a note system where I wrote grammatical notes in the margins and doctrinal or topical notes on the bottom of the page. And so these were numbered and these were lettered. And I used that. But the reason I did that was to force myself to follow along in class in the Greek text and not, because they're teaching it out of the Greek text, but follow along in the interlinear, it was too easy for me to cheat.
To look at the English.
Right. But where you are right now, the interlinear might be a good friend in that regard. This might be a little bit, just because we haven't amassed enough vocabulary yet.
Mhm.
That's the biggest thing at this point, is we need a little bit larger vocabulary to comfortably start reading parts of the New Testament. And it would also be nice to, when we get into like the aorist form, which we haven't done yet.
So I printed, I think it was John Bree, just so it was something short.
Yeah.
In the Greek
Mhm.
that I have at home on my desk. And my intention is to translate it myself.
Yeah.
However, I sat down with it and I was like, this is a form of this word. Like, I get the gist of the word, but it's a form of the word I haven't seen before. It's probably passive or something. Or past aorist.
Aorist tense, yeah.
Yes, some tense that I didn't recognize. Anyway, but my intention is to go through it and just translate it
Mhm.
for practice.
See, and when we get through this next lesson, the first clause, because I was looking at this morning in 1 John 1:1. The first clause in there, you should be able to translate that, because you'll have known all 4 of those vocabulary words and you'll have learned those forms. So we're getting there, and there are a lot. That's why a lot of times you're going to find these books are going to use John and 1 John, because the Greek in John and 1 John is less technical. You read Luke and Acts. In fact, one of my seminary professors, I think he said for his doctoral work, they had to, at random, the staff would pick out a section in the book of Acts that they had to translate. And some of it would be like I think like in chapter 27, when Paul they're on the trip to Rome by boat, and there's a bunch of nautical terms that only occur once or twice in the whole new Bible, you know. So anyway, all that to say, I appreciate you guys being patient. I hope that this is helpful, that you're learning some things. So let's.
I think we're going at a great pace. I mean, I have no objection at all, and
Good.
it's only because of having learned Spanish, and I know what I went through to learn Spanish. It took time, and it took practice, and it took me actually starting to speak it, you know, and just repeatedly going over it, and eventually I got to the point where my dreams were in Spanish, you know, and so eventually, as you start repeating things and seeing things, some words I already know, right? But the ones, like you say, when you get to nouns, like those nautical terms that you're talking about, the very technical ones. I mean, still to this day, I'm still learning new Spanish words because of that. And every time I come up to that where I want to say something, I'll ask somebody, how do you say this now? What's this? What do you call this? And then I pick that up. But you keep adding and adding and adding and adding. And eventually you're able to read it and translate it right in your mind without thinking about it, you know.
I don't know that I'll ever dream in Greek, primarily because biblical Greek's not a spoken language. I mean, we
Right.
might read it out loud, but we don't speak it in conversation.
Right. I don't know if I'll dream it either. But I remember when I came back from a mission, I couldn't speak English. I was stuttering because of how much Spanish I was speaking on a day-to-day basis. I mean, everything was Spanish. And when I first started, I would start with, you know, getting the Bible and getting the Spanish Bible, and I would look one word at a time. Then it became a clause or partial words in a clause. And all of a sudden it became a whole paragraph. And then it became, you know, now I'm just not even I put away the English Bible. So eventually, and it just takes practice and patience and willingness to just keep going on. I'm looking at it from my perspective so I can study the word more. Just an example, I wanted to pick out in the Bible just the other day. I was studying this just yesterday, as a matter of fact. I wanted to get comparisons of the use of didache versus didaxolia. And so I looked up every 29 verses that had the word didache in it so I can understand, because I know that becomes very important for the distinctions.
Mm-hmm.
That's my purpose of this, is I want to pick up that on the nouns, and I also want to pick up the verb uses of it because of all the different tenses. It becomes very important, especially when you get to aorist, right? So, because I hear like your talks, I hear others and they're talking about that's in the aorist. And I didn't know what that meant, but I just believed it. Okay, that means this is what it means. So now I'm like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So
I listen
to me, that's my purpose right now in wanting to learn this is because I'm trying to study the word. Right.
I appreciate both of you wanting to do this and push yourselves, even though I realize it's slow and it's hard. And listen to a podcast the other day, and they said even evangelical seminaries across America are dropping Greek, not requiring their graduates to have Greek, or that they can get through seminary with only like a year of Greek, which if I would have ended with a year of Greek, I'd still have access. I'd still be able to figure out some stuff, but I definitely wouldn't. I mean, let's put it this way. When I'm studying for stuff, I'll read the whole thing in Greek. I'm studying in Greek. I don't even read my English Bible when I'm studying. And if I just like, if in the morning I'm making coffee, I do laps down here reading my Bible, and I'll try to get through. We're going through 2 Thessalonians. My goal is to try to read through a chapter while the coffee's brewing or something like that. So I can do that in 5 minutes. I can read it faster in English. But
and how many years have you been with Greek now? I mean, a long time, right? So, and that's the advantage. I mean, that's what you've done. And that's, if we can keep doing this, we'll get there.
Seminaries say they're not doing this is because they know that probably 90% of their graduates, once they graduate will never hardly ever crack their Greek text again. They're like, what do I need Greek for? I've got a Bible software program. I can click on this and this. But they said a lot of them don't really even know how to use the Bible software programs right. That you have to still understand the structure of the language to interpret what you're reading there. And most of them they just haven't spent time working and to be familiar with the language.
Hence the level of maturity or understanding and studying and teaching in 99% of Christian churches.
Yeah. And I would just say that listen to people all the time saying, in fact, they were even saying this in this class on teaching Greek that I was listening to, that we've got so many good English translations, but I'm like, there's times I've got, I don't know, on my computer, let's say 8 modern English translations, and none of them will translate a phrase correctly. None of them. They're all stuck with this idea. It's an idea I think that comes from the past that they're stuck with, and they all think that this is what it means. And I read commentaries, and sometimes then I have commentaries that they'll go, the English does not reflect the Greek text. But then other commentaries, they don't even touch it. They don't even get this. So I agree. We do have good English translations, but just to let you know, I think there is a payoff in pressing yourself to learn this, because you're going to find that it is going to give you access to things that underlie what we have in English translations, and it allow you to make some judgment calls on this. Having said all that, let's move and look at the test. And I want to ask the first question. I'm going to guess probably neither of you had a ton of problem with the vocabulary. Did most of the vocabulary go fairly well?
Most of it.
Most of it.
I added to that just to say not only noun and verb, but I differentiate the nouns from neuter and feminine and masculine. I did that as well.
Okay. Yeah.
So that helped me, just for me,
and I didn't ask anybody to do that. So yeah, I kind of thought about that I could have switched up forms. I think that's one of the things that maybe, I'm glad you said that.
Maybe for our next test.
I may throw that at you the next test, where I'll have you identify different specific noun forms and give you some different Greek forms instead of just always the vocabulary form.
I just had so much time on my hand, not so much, but we had these 2 weeks. So I thought, I just want to go a little deeper, and for my own benefit, really, just to be able to recognize if it's a neuter, is it feminine, is it, things like that. Is it deponent to verb?
Right.
Is it, defective verb, all those different things. So now that helps.
Okay. So the second part of the vocabulary were prepositions. And I think I got most of all of the prepositions. I hope I didn't miss. Did everybody feel like they did you feel like you did well with those?
I felt like I did better with them.
Better with the
You know,
prepositions.
no, with the verbs and the nouns.
And the extra mile I went was to put it in by case use.
Right, and I didn't break them out, but when I
No.
gave the answers are broken out
Right.
by case, even
Right.
though I didn't state which case, which is actually probably an important thing that we should have emphasized when I redid this. I thought
It's
about
okay.
looking at the
I
answer.
did that again for just to, hone in and to put it into me, that what case is this? Because that becomes important on the translation.
And it really is, because some of these, the translation is going to change based on case. And there's a few translation spots where I think if they followed that better, I think that it would force their translation into a direction that they haven't gone. That's, again, my opinion. Okay, so how did we do with the declension of the first person pronoun? I'm just trying to see where areas maybe we need to emphasize. If you guys you can help me by letting me know where you felt like you struggled more or
All
less.
3 of these I wouldn't have been able to do without the book.
Okay.
I did not remember.
I agree, only because of frequency of using it, Again, it comes to practice and drilling it down.
Okay.
Well, and that
It's more of how many times do we use all these, all these the declensions in this, right? So, but it's good to write it down. What helped me was to write it and see it and practice writing it, just to once again put it down in muscular memory.
Okay. I think I'm gonna create for you some practice sheets on those then, because again, those are, like I was saying with the verb endings, one of the things I did was I would just fill a piece of lined paper and I would just write these over and over in this pattern, write them over and over in this pattern, fill that up. And if I could get it 20 times on the front of a page with the same declension again and again, it helped. Flip the page over, maybe do the same thing on the back. And I know that becomes tedious, but it's amazing when you're doing that by hand and you are saying it and you're looking at it, thinking about it, how that helps.
Right.
And the reason that that's
is
important is because the pronouns occur a lot in the New Testament. And so, you need, if you can keep in mind, remember what they are when you look at them, that'll be a big help. And then under those two, we had the full conjugation of the present indicative of I, me.
I just keep page 9.4 in my page, I keep that on my page, on my memory all the time on this book, because it helps just to look at it all the time. It's page 42, 9.4, and I see them all the time. It's like that page is always open for me on the book because that has that on there. The to be verb, right?
Yeah, I'm just looking in my Greek text, and in the first 4 lines of 1 John 1, that they have there are 2 forms of the to be verb in there, just in the first 4 lines. And in other words, they're not going to be as prominent as the pronouns, but they're also going to be very prominent. So I think we're going to just want to make sure we're getting this. Okay. So the 3 voices of the Greek verb, writing them out and giving a definition, you all felt fairly comfortable with that?
Yeah, that one felt good.
Yeah.
Okay, we put a lot of emphasis on that one. The other ones are trickier because you actually have to write out Greek a lot. Right? It's a little different.
Yeah.
How did we do for conjugating the middle and passive form of decami there?
I got that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Just kind of memorizing the endings and sticking
There you
on there. So
and remember, as I said, your verbal endings, memorize them in packets, right? O, I, aminate, usi, my, etai, metha, esta, antai. So you can rattle those off so you can and I don't mean to be tedious by continuing to say this, but to this day, every once in a while, I come across a form that I'm looking at, and I will go through those. But I almost always have to go back to the beginning and start with the OISI, and I may go through 6 sets of those before I get down to the one that has that form I'm looking at.
Will you ever see in the New Testament, will you ever see the singular second person of that in Thai, or will it always be a?
I think I'm just going to say I think it always is going to occur in a. I can look that up. Let's see.
For that.
Or Sai,
It would be not Thai, be Sai, yeah.
Sai, right?
That was how I wrote it. Deck of Psi was what I sorry. I'm not sure what it was. But I should have had it.
Okay. Okay, how did we do with declining cardia?
That one was me too.
Okay. And probably you both realize cardia doesn't have a vocative form, so that one blank, even though there's a space for it, it's blank.
Right.
I also didn't write it that way.
Oh, okay. Should write it out 8 times because it does help us remember better. The next question: what kind of definite articles do masculine nouns in the first declension take?
Masculine articles in the second declension.
Okay. Okay. Then, how did we do when we took the adjective dikaios and the noun zoe and put them together to create? What are the 3 uses of the Greek adjective? Let's just ask that.
The attributive, predicative, and substantive.
Okay. And did you feel like you had a handle on at least one way to write those out? I only gave you one example in the first case, but
right.
In the attributive case.
I did.
You did okay with that? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Okay, and then I gave you 2 vocabulary words that I didn't know if you would have. And so how did we, I think Robin kind of already indicated here that you felt like you'd been fairly dependent on the textbook when it came to translating.
Yeah, so when
these.
I looked at these, I was like, oh, I could do some of it, but not well. Okay, but I also have a question on the last one.
Okay.
Because you put in your answers, hey to Kaye Zoe.
Okay, wait a second.
And I said, I made the feminine of Dikaios, Dikaya,
Okay.
with an alpha, not an.
Oh, are you okay?
I'm just,
Are you back up under
yeah, of
the adjectives?
Yeah, mhm.
Okay, I was looking down under the sentence translation down
sorry.
below. Okay. So under the attributive,
well, on all of them.
Okay.
You.
oh, it's a
When you-
smooth breathing mark I have.
No, when you made, yes, you did that on the first one, but you ended the chaos, you made the feminine version end in an eta.
Mhm.
I made it end in an alpha. Now I want to know which one's right.
You know what? I might have done that wrong. Now that I'm looking at it, because I need to go back because it ends in iota. There it is. I did mess that up. I just noticed that.
Which one are we talking about?
The attributive form there. Yes, that one should be Dikaya. That's a correction. Good. Well, hey, extra credit because You got the teacher on
Well, I
one there.
really need it if I'm gonna.
And it's just-
remotely pass this test.
And that's the same thing on the next one too.
Mhm.
It's also, that's right. So. 'Cause those end in epsilon iota rho, so it should. Ah. It's terrible when you're the teacher and then you're going through this and you're just rolling through stuff and then all of a sudden, oh, look at that. Okay. And then, and hey, in the last one,
Yeah.
even hey to chaos could be hey to kaya. But you're talking about, in that context, you're talking about life. So it, even that one, I think I need to go back and look at how I was doing that one. I need to go look at my other notes I've got on this. Because even that one, I've got a question now. That's even making me question what I did there. I have to go back and think through why I did that one.
Well,
Okay.
so then my other question is that if we make it hey to kayas, should it be hey to kayas? 'Cause
Well, then most likely then we would switch. Yeah, we should change our
the article.
article. That's exactly what I'm thinking there. And I don't think I think my brain was going in a different direction when I translated that. Okay. So unless I come back and say, oh, there's something different, it should be hey to kaya zoe and hey zoe to kaya and hey to kaya. Yeah, that's what those should be. So I did miss, I'm pretty sure. Like I said, I got to go back and look at that last one because
And the kaya hates away, right? On the last one though, did you want it to be the chaos since you put it up there?
well, then it should be high to chaos. Ha to chaos.
Ha to chaos, right?
Chaos, if that's the
That's
case.
what I have. I had ha to chaos since that's what you wrote up there is the chaos. But it could be hey to kaya if it was for the righteous woman, right? Or something. Yeah.
It could be, but yeah, so then we'd have to change the ending. So, and it would be hey to kaya. Okay. So now let's go down to our sentence translations down below there. So,
Totally bombed it.
okay.
Totally completely.
I mean, did you, well, so here's a question. Were you able to get it translated though?
Without
Yes.
my book or with my book.
Well, okay.
It's only the last word on the first because I wasn't sure what tense that was, and I figured out it was a second aorist active. Right.
Right, that Excel face word.
Yeah, that's what I threw out. So I just kind of winged it by saying, well, it must have came from that out of there. So I just did that. And then when I went to the John 16:30, I said, okay.
And I'm not for sure.
Right.
I thought that was actually a verse that they gave us in one of our lessons, and that they gave us face just as this is what the word meant.
Right.
Probably, yeah.
Because I tried to come up with some that they didn't have, and then use some that we had already gone over, just for some familiarity.
It's okay.
So whether you remember this or not, but when I talked about the test in advance, the goal of the test for you was to try to go through it on your own,
Right.
and then to open your book to see how you would do that way, to see if there were things with the book that you needed to add to it, or to help you. So in other words, round one, not open book, round two, open book.
So round two definitely helped. How's that? And it's okay to me. That's fine because it helped me see where the holes are, right? And then you remember those things. So
Okay, so I'm
try to remember.
I'm curious then, kind of for my thinking about how I'm teaching through this. Can you think of any spots in there that were were the problems vocabulary related? Did you feel like you just were weak on vocabulary in those?
Well, I just don't remember all of them, right? Only because of the ones that we use a lot. I mean, yeah, that was not a problem. But it's the ones that, okay, once in a while, I haven't practiced it enough or seen it enough for me. That's my style. It's repetitiveness with me would help me,
Like,
But that's not for anything on your part. It's just because of the way we're moving through this. That's all.
Right, it's more practice.
It's
so
not
like,
anything on you.
like it. Well, no, don't worry about that. I'm asking these questions because I think you probably, I hope you both know this. When a teacher gives a test, if a teacher's doing it right, it's to help the student see how they're doing, but it's also to help the teacher understand how they're doing in teaching this stuff, because they can see areas that maybe they need to emphasize better. So that's part of the way I'm asking some of these questions. So on sentence number 3, like you get down towards the end of the first part of the sentence there, have lithone. We haven't used the word lithos a great deal. Was that a problem? Were you able to remember?
I actually was.
Yeah, that wasn't a problem.
That.
Okay.
Because it followed what we've already learned. You just have to know the endings.
Yeah, so for me, honestly, it was just that I've been relying too heavily on my book when I'm working through my sentences. I'm working through the exercises rather than just working through the exercises.
Okay.
That was my biggest issue. And I think that you did your part to prepare us.
Okay. So then that's an encouragement to.
It is all stuff I should have known.
Yeah.
Man, you're hard on yourself. I don't mind relying on the book. For me, I don't, because I learned that way.
Yeah.
It's like studying the word. How often do we go to the book? The words matter, the distinctions matter. So it's good to just see it again. And also it helps me remember to go. It's someday in the future, I'm going to want to go back and say, okay, where did I see that? And oh yeah, boom, So that helps me to go to the book. Because it's just, again, it's for what I'm trying and set goals for myself is I'm happy at the pace that I'm going. And I know I don't expect to be perfect. I don't expect I'm not making it too hard for myself. Why? Because I have faith that it's going to be all okay. I have faith in this, that it's a good way to learn and it's going to help me and eventually help others if I become that person that can teach,
So
the word, basically.
Oh, some students. Yes. So the reason I pulled my phone out is so 2 things to encourage you to do. If you're using a vocabulary app, make it a point. Maybe set a daily alarm on your phone. If you kind of know in your mind that there's kind of a time where usually at this time every day, I kind of have a little bit of a break. I'm not doing anything else. Set an alarm to remind yourself to sit down and do vocabulary on your phone. If you've downloaded one of the vocabulary apps, I don't know if you do this when you're at work, Joe, or not, when you get your break. Because I'll tell you, one of the guys I went to seminary with, he really knew Greek well when he sat in on our class. Do you know where he learned Greek? He was like, technically, he had not had it in seminary, but he had 2 years of Greek before he got to seminary. And he learned it at URM down in the Bay Area. URM is a grocery warehouse. That's where they even have URM here. And that's where, like our grocery store here, that's where they get their orders. They file their order and they have semi trucks that bring an order of groceries in. And this guy and my Greek professor both were working there. And my Greek professor, they would sit at lunch and on break, and he would teach him Greek. Yeah. And he'd been doing this for a while. So,
and there's the key right there.
Yeah.
For a while.
And so again, so part of that is making a point to work on vocabulary every day. And then the other part I would suggest is to work on our declensions and conjugations. So charting those out. And I think you can, I think on a couple of the apps that are available, I ought to look those up, but you can actually get, you can get just same way that you can get vocabulary cards on your phone, you can get conjugation and declension where they actually will give you different forms of the word, and you have to identify it before you flip the card to go, oh, it's this, it's this. So I would think about that. But even though that's a good way to drill, just because you're kind of doing it at random rather than going through the same order. And I'm telling you, I could put a chart together, but seriously, just take lined paper at home and say, I'm going to go through all the first declension in the different forms, and I'm going to fill a page doing this. I'm going to sit down and do this at least a couple times a week. You probably don't have time to do that every day. But I think if you
probably do have time to do it.
well,
It's just
yeah,
making it a priority.
Well, I don't want to make excuses for myself, so I'm not going to say I don't have time, because if you want to, you'll make the time.
True.
So not trying to be complacent, but I'm just happy at the pace we're going.
no, I'm not talking about us speeding our pace up here. I'm just trying to think of ways to
For
help
myself.
you retain
Right.
what it is we're going over. Okay. So any other comments or questions on any part of the test?
The sentences that we translated, there were 2 aorist tense words in there, labine and exaltes. And I had no idea. Labine, I thought for sure you made a typo or something.
And I am looking for Lamine on there. I'm just
It's
totally
in
missing
the
it.
fourth-
It's John 14:17. It's a infinitive aorist.
Oh, right there. Okay.
Mhm.
And
then-
that's not in, that's, no, that is an aorist. That is an aorist. Yeah, it's an aorist.
I only
Yes.
know that because I looked.
Because you
it
looked it up. Okay.
Yeah.
And then
Exactly.
in the 5th sentence, those first 2 words, I have no idea. Should I know?
Tit
what-
and eti.
T and eti. Yeah, we've had that.
I didn't. I had no idea.
Okay.
And host, what is that?
Host is as, and I think that's actually a new vocabulary. And for
So
some
we
reason
do
I
have a
made,
chapter 12 star there.
oh, that we're going to get that in chapter 12. Yeah. So that was
That's while and when.
where you could
And I
look
felt like
ahead.
that was unfair.
Yeah.
Okay. But that's
Yeah,
why
actually,
it's in chapter 12, so you could look ahead to fill that in. So, but
and it's okay, because some of this stuff, it makes you look. I start looking forward in the different parts of the book, going ahead to say, okay, where did Labine come
Hey,
from?
Joe,
Right?
just given a test. I better have been taught the information.
Better have been taught the
in
information.
in the text.
But see, the way I learn there is by kind of times digging in for your own and trying to figure it out.
Sure.
You know, like you're trying to put a carburetor together. Back, you know, you try to sit there and fumble your way through. And you try to find where the resources that can help you. That helps me to learn.
Sure.
So that's just me.
my first year Greek, most of the exercises, we didn't have workbooks like this.
Mhm.
Our exercises literally where you were given, maybe I had to try this. This was the old way. This is the way they taught Greek for a long time, was that they gave you a series of Greek sentences. Most of them were not from the New Testament. They were made up by the Greek professor in that textbook, and you translated. But then you were also given a set of English sentences, and you translated from English to Greek, which is that
Yeah.
honestly, I think was harder,
Way harder.
Yeah,
way harder. Maybe I ought to give, maybe we ought to try.
it is harder.
Old
See,
pedagogy.
but let me ask you this, Tim. What is your, basically it's, as an instructor is, you know, what is your expectation for us? That's the thing, is if you're expecting us to go, maybe our expectations for myself is not in line with what you expect from me. You want us to,
No,
you know,
my expectation for you is that one day, when you have amassed some vocabulary and you become familiar with these forms, that you can do what I'm saying, that you can sit down with a full Greek text and work your way through it.
and that's a reasonable expectation. That's exactly what I'd like to be able to do. I just put a a thing called time in between, you know, like
Oh, yeah.
a disciplined time, I would say. Because yeah, you have to have the discipline to
And I
make the
don't-
time.
And I'm not, and I don't kid myself. I mean, I've been doing this I took my first Greek class in 1983. So that's almost 40 years ago.
There you go.
So I've been doing a lot of stuff with Greek for a long time. But I would have to say by the time I finished seminary, I actually would say I had a pretty fair proficiency with Greek. I'm not boasting when I'm saying this. I'm just saying I had to do some things really hard to learn Greek. And one of the things I did between my first year in seminary and my second year is I knew the first class I would have the second year was going to be in Philippians, and that we were also going to be in Luke. And so that summer, every week when we were off, I made myself in my Greek text read through Philippians, which when I started, it was like, read 5 words. Oh, look in the lexicon. What word is that? I'm going to go through there and do that. I don't know. So there was a lot of looking up, but after doing that for a couple of weeks, I was remembering those things because I was forcing myself to do that. And then I did some out of Luke, trying to familiarize. Luke was harder because Luke's Greek is a little bit more challenging. Okay.
And I could relate that to my learning of Spanish. I was on a mission. And so every day I'm reading in the Spanish Bible, right? So little by little like that, doing the same exact thing you were doing, going back and looking at the, you know, English side of that. Then eventually I left it alone. And that took 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good. It'll happen. If I was right now on a mission in Greece or whatever it is, I'd be doing the same thing. I know I would, to force myself to learn the language at a faster pace.
Okay, so we have a little bit of time left. So this is what we're going to do.
Joe's already through chapter 12. Robin is not.
Okay, so we're just going to go to, if you can pull up chapter 12 in your workbook, we're just going to walk through the vocabulary. And I'm going to let you two take turns walking through our vocabulary this way. I'm going to let you two take turns pronouncing the words. And if so. And this will be in the textbook. Okay, so
okay.
Chapter 12.
Who do you want to start?
Well, are you ready, Joe, on your end?
Yes.
Okay, so why don't you start us with the first word there?
Okay. So that's Allah, but it's a conjugation stronger than day.
I have no idea what I was doing. I just looked at my Greek notes that I put up online for you, and I have Allah, I answer, dative case. It's like, this is called proofreading. This is called proofreading. I have got to correct that before I put that up there, because the minute I looked at that, I was like, well, that's not right. Yeah, it's but, and it's a strong, we have a couple of different buts in Greek, and this is the stronger contrast. Okay, Robin.
Paktino. A paktino?
Mm-hmm.
I killed.
Okay. Galilea. Hey, Galilee.
Mm-hmm.
A gate.
Mm-hmm.
The earth.
And
which is different than world. So cosmos.
right. Yeah. This is talking about the physical ground. Cosmos a few times is used with reference to the physical universe, as it were. Gay, we get the word geology from it, just if that helps at all.
Okay.
Geology, talking about the physical planet.
Okay.
So eti is still, and as an adverb yet.
Okay. And that was the one I put in that one sentence that Robin complained about at the end of the test.
Hetoimazo. I prepared.
Therapeu. Therapeu. Oh.
Okay, the E and the U.
Therapeuo.
Yeah, okay,
Is that right?
so
I
say
heal.
IKEA. And we get therapeutic from that. You
Right.
probably
Therapeuo.
I get Jesus, ha Jesus, Jesus or Joshua.
okay.
Israel. Ha. Israel. Indeclinable.
So it's always Israel.
Mhm.
Ha Yones. John.
So John's name occurs in the Old Testament. It's the name of a book. Say the word again and see if you recognize what the Hebrew, what,
Okay. Crosso.
just a second.
Crosso.
Just a second,
Okay,
just a second,
sorry.
Joe.
What's that?
Jonah.
Jonah,
Oh,
same name. Okay,
same name?
yep, same
Oh,
name.
okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Crosso. I cry out.
Kratzo. Cry. Noon. Now.
Uketi. No longer.
And
I feel like these words are harder.
And uketi, this is kind of a compound. It's a compound of, what's the first part of this word?
Not. Uk.
Not. And then the last part, eti, if you just look up in a vocabulary list,
Oh, still.
yeah. So we would say, if you put those two together, not still. So, or no longer. Yeah.
What about not yet?
Well, and there's probably some places, I think that there is another form, but sometimes they actually translate that.
Not yet.
Not yet. So,
Oh, yeah. Cool.
Scotia. Hey, Scotia. Darkness.
Tote. Then.
Huparke. I exist or am.
oh, and yours has an A ending on it.
Huparco. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
No, I
Okay.
said it wrong. Huparco. I was just thinking of RK when I read it.
Yeah.
Huparco. I exist.
And
But not I am.
Sometimes, a lot of times your Bible's translated I am because that's kind of smoother modern English, but it really lays its emphasis on existence.
existing.
So,
And os. As. While. When.
and huparco, going back to that idea of I exist, it goes back to the way you originally exist. So I believe that this word is used. Just try to bring out some things that maybe encourage you and why this is helpful. Yeah, Philippians 2:6, who existing in the form of God, talking about God the Son, and that word existing, then that idea of huparco, Greek scholars would say that has to do with your original existence. So Jesus's original existence is the form of God. That is originally who he is. Before he ever becomes man, he has always existed in the form of God. And this is the word that's used.
So RK is beginning, right?
Mhm.
And Hupo is under.
Under or by, yeah.
Okay.
So it's one of those words that doesn't look like, you kind of get that idea of beginning. So beginning under, you're looking at where how a thing exists back there at its beginning, or the way it originally is.
Beginning under, yeah.
Hos is an important word, as, like, or when, because it is a comparative adverb, and it's one of those words that I sometimes think some scholars aren't as smart as they should be. I know that sounds really arrogant to say, but it's amazing that they will say that this is the same thing, and you go, then why does he say it's like that? If you say it's like that, it's not saying it is the same thing. He's just making a comparison, you know.
So should that be as, like, and when? In the book it says as wild.
As while and when. And okay.
In my book.
As like, okay. Yeah, I think I added like just because I translate it that way quite a bit when I'm for clarity in certain passages. Okay, supplementary vocabulary. This is going to be out of the workbook. We have Elias. Ha Elias, mercy.
Oh, really?
Oh, oh, I mean, yeah, in the notes, which I don't think I've put up on the online yet. I
I don't-
apologize for that.
I don't know. I didn't do that.
I
So I'm
apologize.
assuming this is in our,
It's
These
in
are out of
it's
the
in the
word.
workbook. Nazareth, hey.
okay.
Okay, so Elias is mercy. Ha Elias, mercy. And there's several words that are related to this too. Nazareth, Nazareth is Nazareth. Pleroma is the fullness. That this is a place to learn some details. That ma ending on the end of plero, that ma ending lays emphasis on a result. So you have a number of nouns that have ma endings, and they're always laying. So the emphasis of this, you have fullness because it's a result of filling. If you fill something, then you have fullness or completeness. Okay. Now the other reason, and they've added these words because you need them for translation work in this, but we haven't got to this. But this is pleroma, and then you have pleromatas, because pleromatas, that's the form it's going to take in the genitive when you get to the genitive case. And you don't have to worry about that a whole lot, but they're introducing that now. Hey prasuke, prasuke or hey prasuke is prayer, or I add the word worship because I'm really convinced that this is the term that in the epistles really becomes our term for worship, because otherwise we have no word for worship anywhere in the New Testament epistles. Schisma is a division or a split. And this is like pleroma. And so again, you have schism. Think of a scissors. And that ma ending is showing you that it's a result. Tis or ti, who or what. And then hora, hour. And I'm not for sure, but I think our English word hour actually is derived from this Greek word over time through a lot of mispronunciation and such over
Well,
time.
hora, and then in Spanish it's hora.
Oh, for an hour.
Mhm.
Well, you remember Spanish better than I do. That's good. So, okay. So add those vocabulary words on your list, practice those. And that's what I would do. I would practice those. You can go ahead, feel free to go ahead and read through the next lesson, but don't feel like you have to. We'll go over that next time. And I will try to get this up here this morning, my notes. My notes.
With the corrections?
What?
With the
Well,
corrections?
with the test corrections, yeah, and with the correction to that vocabulary term, Allah. And I don't know what in the world I was thinking about there. So, okay, anything else? I'm going to stop the
You know how you got Allah?